give everyone a couple more minutes to get on.
Oh, and I hear the birds someplace.
It's awkward when somebody waves because you don't know if they're waving at you or to somebody else.
It took me a while when I started doing Zoom meetings to realize that not everybody is in the same spot on everyone's screen. So
Yeah.
I like Elizabeth is right there for me. So like I would be like talking about Elizabeth and like pointing at Elizabeth, but on someone else's screen I would probably be pointing at somebody else, you know? And so it took me a while to figure that out.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Pam.
Good morning, Donna. You look lovely today.
Well, thank you.
Good morning, Jen.
I'm trying to get my screen up, so not sure what I did.
You should be able to, Jen, if you just
yeah, I'm familiar with this. I do this every day. I just can't for some reason on this one. I can't, but I do Zoom every day. I just can't do this one. I don't know what I'm doing. So,
okay.
I must have clicked the wrong button instead of opening the window. Let's see. No, that's weird. Start video.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I've just muted everybody so that we will be able to hear who's talking. If you have something that you want to interject during the meeting, probably the best way to do it is to raise your hand. So if you go into the participant view, you'll be able to see where you can actually raise your hand. So that'll be your best bet there. I don't see Jessie in the meeting, I don't think. Pam, would you be willing to take some notes for us?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I'll share my screen so that you can see the notes, and then Pam, if you just pull up the agenda on your own so that you can type in, that would be helpful. First of all, welcome everybody. It's so good to see everybody, and even though this is our second virtual meeting and we were supposed to be meeting in Greeley, I think we're all now quite used to these kinds of meetings, and unfortunately so nice to see all your faces, and hope everybody is doing well and healthy, and staying well as we continue in these weird times. So today we've got a few things to get through, and then we will have our business meeting and everything, and then we'll be able to wrap up. I don't anticipate that we'll be here for the full 3 hours. I just wanted to block that off so that we made sure we weren't rushing, because we have a little bit of new business in the business meeting and things. So yeah. Could Jen Smith or someone connect with Veronica? She's having a hard time getting into the meeting, and I just don't have time to respond to the text messages right now.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Thank you. So a few announcements and kudos and things. So, and if others have things to add. So National Teachers of the Year obviously are typically announced the Friday at convention. Because we didn't have convention, they are announcing the National Teachers of the Year. Shape America is throughout the week. Next week, which is National PE and Sport Week. So you can see on the agenda that the Adapted Physical Education and Dance Teachers of the Year will be announced on the 4th. The Health Teacher of the Year will be announced on the 5th, and then elementary on the 6th, middle on the 7th, and high on the 8th, high school on the 8th. So as you might remember, we have Brian and Brad Hull, who are in the running, Brad for the middle school and Brian for the high school. So pay attention to your social media and email on the 7th and 8th from Shape America for those announcements. And we'll, really celebrate them if either of them are selected as the winner for the National Teacher of the Year. Advocacy committee asked me to talk about the podcast and Murray on CPR, and they might add anything else in there. I've inserted links. Colin Brooks and I, through the After Schools Institute at UNC, did a podcast a couple weeks ago now, and we had all Shape Colorado members on the podcast, and Melissa Tank from the board and Brian Hull from the board were on the podcast, and then also 3 other teachers from the state. And the link is there. It can also be downloaded through the Apple podcast store. I don't know what it's called. It's free. And then also on Android if you want that too, through Google Play. Colin texted me this morning. It already has 699 downloads, which is apparently like a lot in podcast world. So Melissa's famous is basically what that is and what that means, and Brian and the others who are on it. So it was really great to be part of that, and hopefully if you did listen to it, it was a little bit helpful to hear what other teachers are doing and whatnot. So that was something that was really exciting, and something we can also use as an advocacy tool as we are promoting quality physical education. And then our very own Murray Wallace was interviewed on CPR and did just a smashing job in his interview, and et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm just bugging him. He said that a lot in his podcast or in his interview. He was so good and represented us so well, and really was able to kind of dispel some of the myths that are out there about what we do as physical education teachers and whatnot. So I'm not sure if anyone from the advocacy committee wanted to jump in and talk a little bit about why it's important for us to use these things to promote them. Pam, you had emailed me that you wanted me to put them on. You're good.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so as a group of educators, we just thought that it would be a great idea to listen to these the podcast and Murray's interview. You can promote those as you wish. Again, it's just another tool for teachers to put in their belt, and as they're getting ready to talk with their administrators this month about this next year and staffing and that kind of stuff, it'd be a great idea to just have this ammunition with you as you go about your meetings.
Okay.
Is Murray on? I can't see my my little Kindle doesn't let me see who's on.
Yeah,
so
Murray's here. Do you want him to jump in?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's important that with this state is going to be it's going to be an interesting time coming up and all that type of stuff, funding wise and all that type of stuff, and clearly people will start talking about cutting programs and all that type of stuff in districts and all that. And traditionally, we physical education and health have been probably those targets and all that type of stuff, which would be really ironic, as I said, I think in one of my tweets. Given the fact that this physical education and health would probably be one of our best preventative measures against the worst effects of COVID-19, so I think it's just really important that we do that. And the funding at the state level and stuff like that is going to change. Pam, I don't know if is Kayla going to be on today sometime?
yeah, Kayla is going to be joining us
Yeah.
at 30.
So I'm sure she'll fill us in and all that type of stuff. But I mean, it's obviously going to have effects for at least 2 to 3 years type of thing. So we just want to make sure we stay on top of that and advocate at every opportunity.
Yeah, I think too, the other piece, so I'm not sure how many of you have seen the CDC guidance document that came out this week for schools. And unfortunately, they actually state that physical education and art and music, should look very different according to the CDC, where the teachers, they're suggesting the teachers actually go to the classrooms versus the kids moving around. Obviously, from a public health standpoint, that makes sense rather than having children, coming into a common space and infecting that space and whatnot. And so we're going to need to think about really creative ways to support the teachers in this state if they are having to do physical education and health education. Well, health education, I think, is obviously more well suited to a classroom because you're generally in a classroom anyway. But to do physical education in a classroom setting and still have it tied to outcomes and things. So I think keeping that in mind is going to be really important for all of us, and what we can do to support teachers throughout that process. Jamie, do you have anything maybe from CDE around that, like that might pertain to this?
Yeah, I saw that. And that was actually released. I mean, that particular piece from CDC was released earlier. And so that has kind of been floating around. And I've talked to the folks there also, and that we work with at CDC. Sorry about the dog. We're trying to get him out the door. That they have no control over the guidance just in terms of the school health folks there, but we have talked about that. So the guidance that districts are currently getting is that, be prepared for two scenarios. It's either we're kind of doing, a blended approach where it's partly face-to-face, partly online, or it's going to be all online, but there will be some level of social distancing as we move back. What that looks like, we don't really know, and to what extent we don't really know either at this point, because those decisions haven't really been made yet. But it is, it is going to look different. We're expecting that it's going to have to look different moving back into next year. But the specific guidance from us, we'll be we're working really closely with local health or public health. Sarah Blumenthal, who's our school nurse, is on literally daily calls with CDPHE and with the state kind of group that comes together. So, as decisions are made, Katie Anthos is trying to get that information out to superintendents regularly, and that will be the first group that it goes to superintendents, and then it'll go out through other forms through CDE communications after that. That's kind of all that I know right now in terms of that. But we are at the table to advocate to, make health and physical education, part of what's happening, and it has to be that way. And I think we'll just have to see how things play out.
Jamie, I had a quick question. Is there any way to post the link to the CDC reference that you're mentioning?
Yeah, I'll I can, or if someone can pull it maybe and put it into the chat, that would be awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jamie.
And that guidance is part of broader guidance. The majority of the guidance, honestly, is around, cleaning and disinfecting and things like that. And then there's some other guidance below that really kind of talks about things to consider in schools.
Thanks. Yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah, so I was just thinking that maybe I believe the next issue of the Shape Colorado Journal is in June. And so I'm wondering if this would be a good place to share out some of our, advocacy ideas around this topic, and then also, members' ideas for how to approach this. maybe a mix of what they've been doing through this, and mixed with ideas for the fall, given the potential situations. So I'm wondering if it's almost like it just included in the call for proposals to include some of those, or call for articles to include some of those topics. I'll probably include that in that call, but just something for everyone to be thinking about when that call comes out in the next week or so.
Great. That's a great idea, Jen. Thanks for contributing that. While we're on Jen, I kudos to Jen Kraus. She had a new textbook come out that she co-authored with 2 other folks. So really well done to her. It's a first of its kind technology for physical educators, health educators, and coaches. And so she worked really hard on it. Trust me, I saw the weekend writing binges and all kinds of things. And so it's out, and there is a link right here on the agenda to that book. And you can check that out and maybe get a signed copy from her. And just also to mention that we are, as of yesterday, within National PE and Sport Week. So I've linked Shape America's page on that so that you can pull resources and participate in that if you are so inclined. And just because a lot of in-person things have been canceled, I thought it would be worthwhile to include the link for the Phys Ed Summit, which is happening next Saturday, May 9th. And you can go to the website for more information on the Phys Ed Summit. It's a free online professional development day, and they've got presenters from all over the world. I think it takes place over 6 hours or something like that. And there was advanced registration, but I still think that anyone can go if they want to. I believe they've already got over 2,000 people registered. And so it should be a great time for people to do physical, or to do some professional development. And I do believe that they allow you to like download certificates and things like that to show professional development hours once you participate in those sessions. So you can check that out. Colin Brooks, who most of you know, is part of the organizing group for that. So if anyone needs more information, you can probably email Colin. I just wanted to mention, I'm sure everybody knows, but I was elected to the Shape America Board of Directors last week. So congratulations or commiserations, I don't know. Thank you, everybody. But I'm really excited. We have now 2 people from Colorado on the board of directors, with Clay has 1 year left. And so I think it's going to be really great for, us as an organization to kind of be able to show off sort of what we do within Colorado, but then also to have hopefully some say in some decision making at the national level. And then also Elizabeth just mentioned to me that she was elected to the Professional Preparation Council. Is that what the name of the council? Yeah. So congratulations to Elizabeth, who is also on a Shape America council. So well done. Any other kudos or announcements or anything for the good of the order? Okie dokie. Seeing no hands raised. Elizabeth, I'm going to turn it over to you. We obviously, in the May meeting, for those of you who have been on the board before, you'll know that we typically review abstract proposals for the convention during the May meeting. That's looking a little different these days. So the convention committee is going to suggest a different proposal review process, and Elizabeth is going to talk us through that. So over to you.
Could you just open up that link there on the agenda? So I put all the directions in one link And so typically we have these all printed out and we pass them around and everyone marks yes or no and also marks comments on there. Instead, I've organized them into categories. So within this year's folder, there's a convention folder, and that's where you'll find all the proposals that have been submitted. As of this morning, we have 49 that are submitted. And so what we're asking is that you sign up for one of the tracks. Now, most proposals were submitted for 2 different tracks, and so they might have marked both elementary and secondary. I just stuck them in only one of those tracks so that it doesn't get confusing. So some of the elementary ones are actually geared for everyone. Some of the health ones are mixed into elementary. Like, it just kind of depends. I just picked one track. And so you're being asked to open up the session, sign up for one of the tracks, open up the session proposal. At the top, you'll see a grid where you can put your name and the date, whether you think it should go into our convention program, and then any comments you have. So if you have any concerns about it, if you're like, I think we should have this topic, but the description's not very well written, or concerns about the presenter because you went to one of their sessions or anything like that, there's a spot for you to put those comments in. We're asking that you do it by May 20th so that the convention committee can look over that feedback and make those decisions and get announcements out and stuff like that. The session proposals are still open. Like I said, we only have 49 that were submitted. It is low this year. So if you,
what are we usually at right now? Do you know?
Donna, that's a question for Donna.
Rob, can you hear
Usually
me?
60.
Yeah,
around
usually at about
65, 70.
70, something like that.
Yeah. So if you had an idea and you haven't submitted it yet, please get that in. I'll be updating these folders as we get more proposals on the sheet every couple of days. I'll update them, so that might change. If they're, it'd be nice if we can get 3 people reviewing every single session proposal. That's why I have 3 volunteers listed there. But if all of those spots fill up, feel free to put your name underneath someone else's name. And also, like, I see Pam signed up for elementary. If Pam also wants to review all the others, you're more than welcome to. So you can review all of them if you would like to.
And just as a kind of for everybody to know, the proposals are like 150 words. It's very short to read the proposals. Then they list some learning outcomes or session outcomes and things. So these don't take a long time to do. But I think especially in like the elementary and secondary PE ones that have more sessions, it'd be great if we could have like maybe, double volunteers or something like that, just to ease the burden a little bit. So feel free to kind of add in your name underneath Pam, Debbie, or Dave, who were just like, early birds catching the worm there. So great. And so do you want me to go to the folder? And
Sure.
Okay. And
I
then
have a
Karen has a
question.
question. Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
How do I get my name in there?
If you click on the link, or someone can add it for you if they would like to.
Karen, what do you want to do?
Coaching, the higher ed one, please. I'm trying to figure it out.
Looks like Deanne's typing your name in.
Thank you. And I didn't put a proposal in because I thought I missed the deadline, which I did. So I've got 2 thoughts, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead and do, the proposal link is still live. So go ahead and submit those.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Please, as soon as possible. So as you see, Jamie just clicked on the folder for secondary, and you'll see all of them are titled by what the title was submitted. And so type your name into that chart there at the top, read through it. Yes or no, it should be accepted. And then if you have any comments, you can type those comments as well.
Yeah. And a few things to consider, like, do you want to maybe give them some advice on, like, for example, what if there's like 7 dance sessions and they're all really similar? Do we accept all of them, or what does that look like? Do you have advice for people on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to make that comment. That's usually what the convention committee does, and they might consolidate. They might ask people to do a session together if two sessions were submitted that are very similar. So, if you know these people personally and you're like, gosh, this is an amazing presenter, that's great information for us to know as well. So,
Hey, Elizabeth, so is the link to the folder, where's that link to the folder? Can we put this in the agenda or on your document?
Yes, so it's in the convention folder. So I can just link that into the agenda where we're talking
That'd
about.
be awesome. Thank you.
any other questions about reviewing these? Again, we really need feedback by May 20th so that we can kind of move forward.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and the convention committee, for being super flexible during this time, because this is obviously not how we usually do things. Donna, did you want to jump in with anything? Hold on, you're muted.
Unmute. Sorry.
No, you're good.
There was a question about maybe if there's multiple proposals for the same kind of session, which is okay because then people can go to different ones and stuff too. So, but if you haven't put your proposal in, go ahead and do it still. We're going to keep it open all summer.
Yeah, and even like for the emerging leaders on the call and stuff, like students can submit proposals, like anyone can submit proposals. And so, think about some of the things that you're learning in your classes and connect with your professors and whatnot too. So anyone is eligible to submit. And I think the one kind of biggest myth I always hear is like, people are like, oh, well, I'm not good enough to do this or whatever. And you'd be surprised. I mean, you're all doing really innovative things in your classes. And so, if you've got, one really solid lesson or an idea about something, submit it and be a presenter. And, it's really, I think for those of you that have presented, it's fun to present and to have that kind of different experience at a convention. So, so keep that in mind. Okay, anything else on that before we proceed?
Yeah, I actually had a quick question, Jamie. I posted it on comments to the right there. And I missed last session, so maybe I missed this question also, but given the circumstances of where we're at, are we still going full speed ahead on the idea that we're going to be in person and available for convention? Are we thinking, waiting from Polis on how the fall should be approached? And do we see maybe an idea on approaching the virtual space? That was what my question was.
Yeah, Donna might kind of talk about that in your committee report. But I do know that Donna has been in touch with the venue, and they don't like things are changing, I think, so rapidly right now. I'm not sure that they have I don't know, Donna, if you want to mention anything about that right now.
Well, we're going full speed ahead right now because we don't know. And I talked to the hotel, they don't know. Just, if we have a second wave in the fall like they're predicting, who knows? So we're gonna act like we're still gonna do it, and we'll just wait and see. And unfortunately, that sucks, but we've talked about doing a virtual conference. So yeah, I contacted John at the hotel, and he's like, "Yep, that's what we're planning. So we're not doing any cancellations unless Governor Polis says that we can't." So,
and I think that we just need to be, conscious of things that are changing super rapidly around this space. Membership committee will likely talk about this in their report, but you would have seen an email that went out from them with a survey this week to really find out how we can, as a board, support teachers right now in general and our members in general. But then they also did have questions around the virtual space. So I think we should know a little bit more about what that might look like once they start getting in results from that survey, and they can maybe talk a little bit more about that when it's their time to share out as a committee. So thank you, Donna, for that. And I think, we have to just presume as we're moving forward in all of our committee work that the convention is going to happen, and that, we plan for that. And, obviously with the knowledge that it's very likely that, it might not happen or look differently. And so I think as a board, we just continue to move forward as is until we have any additional guidance on that. With that said, I see Kayla has joined us, and so we will jump right over to our. I know you're not our lobbyist anymore. I still put you on here as our lobbyist. I can't remember what your new title is, like champion of advocacy or something like that. We need to come up with some kind of cool name for you. But thanks for joining us, and I will throw it over to you to tell us all the good news about everything that's happening, in the political space right now.
Yes, and I apologize that this is what it is like to be 2 weeks out from your due date. So just, I don't think everybody's seen me this way. So, so I definitely want to make sure that we leave time for questions, and I'll have the chat, so that I can look at that too. If you want to write a question down, and I can get to it later. I think that as teachers, I can't imagine what you're going through right now and how you've had to adjust and change everything. And so I just want you to know that I have so much respect and admiration for you. I think I've shared before that, some of my best friends are teachers, and I know that this has been incredibly difficult for them. And so I just want you to know that I'm thinking about you and how incredibly hard this is. And I'm sure you're not getting the things that you need, but it's just monumental right now. So I want to start with that, and then talk about, I'm sure, what you're hearing in the press. You might be hearing it from your associations. And then, hey, Jamie, I don't know, do you want to, I'm going to be sharing the screen around the notes. It would be easier for me if I could do like gallery view and see everybody, so that like if someone has a question, that's okay. Great, thank you. So the state is facing an unprecedented budget crisis, one of which, honestly, because you guys know, for those of you who aren't my business partner, Patrick, he's been doing this for 40 years. So he was working through the recession in the 80s, and then obviously we both went through the recessions in the 2000s. There's nothing like this that the state has ever experienced. And we don't know the recovery, in other recessions. You can sort of map out what does an economic recession mean, and how is it different, and how can you expect to recover. With this type of a recession that has had this kind of an impact on employment, it's much more difficult to anticipate or look at. And I think that's what's such a hard thing for people to deal with right now, is that there aren't clear answers, and there isn't a clear direction for how the legislature should proceed. And in Colorado, given the fact that we have Tabor in our Constitution, what it means is just that the recession will be felt differently and likely much deeper here. And so that's why, there's been, I think, bits of information that have trickled out in the press over the last few weeks. At this point, the latest indication we have is that the state is facing a $3 billion shortfall for the next budget year. And the way that the legislature is deciding to come back, I'll give a little bit of context for that, and then we can talk about the budget. So the legislature took a break starting on March 18th, to deal with the expected spike, stay-at-home orders, etc. They adjourned, but didn't formally end their legislative session. So they adjourned, and in the last couple of weeks have decided that they are going to come back slowly. So next week, the Joint Budget Committee will meet. You can watch it I'll be watching it on video, listen to it online. And they are going to start to put placeholders of the budget together. they've received briefings from every department, the Department of Education, Higher Ed, Department of Labor. They received briefings from their staff, which were made public this last Monday, the 27th. I'm going to talk about the one for education and how it impacts us. And those are just recommendations that the staff gives to the Joint Budget Committee to give them options for how they can balance. So next week they'll come together, they'll put placeholders down. On May 12th, that's really the most important date. That is when they will do a new budget forecast. And those numbers will give us an indication of where we go from here. When they had when the Joint Budget Committee had their last forecast, which was in March, like a couple days after they adjourned, it showed the potential for a $2 billion shortfall. So in a month, it's gone deeper than that. After they get their budget forecast on the 12th, they'll quickly start to put the budget together. And then their goal is for the whole legislature to return, although there will be some members who are granted leave because they're older and have underlying health conditions. They will come back on the 18th, and the goal is that they start meeting the 18th in the House to go through the budget and all of the orbital bills, which are the bills that follow the budget to go along with it, which they'll probably need many this year to try to balance things and waive certain parts of statute, just given the level of the crisis. And then the next week, they'll try to pass it in the Senate. The hope is that they're able to pass the School Finance Act by May 30th, which was a goal that the school district CFOs had given them to really give them time to budget and know what they're going to be working with next school year. So now I want to talk about what we anticipate around the budget. I see somebody here said Jeffco's preparing for a worst case scenario of 38 million in cuts, but hoping for less. Sorry. Hey, good morning. Yeah, sorry. So DPS, to give you guys some context, Denver Public Schools presented to their board and proposed that if there were a 5% cut, so 5% cut to what is the current funding level, that would mean they were 72 million in the hole. And obviously Denver's a large school district, but that is a very large number to overcome. And so the 38 million in cuts, hoping for less. Everybody is hoping for less. One of the big issues here that we face is that the CARES Act dollars, the state got 1.7 billion from the third stimulus package. Unfortunately, the state does not have the flexibility to use those dollars to backfill parts of the budget. They have to be used on COVID-related expenses, which is really difficult for everyone to understand. If you guys remember the last recession, the American Recovery Act dollars, the ARA dollars, those had total flexibility. The states were able to use them in a way that allowed them to backfill and minimize cuts to the budget. And right now we don't have that flexibility. So our state legislature advocates, certainly clients of mine, are advocating at the federal level to get more and better guidance and to get more flexibility. So they're trying for that in May. Hold on a second. Okay, sorry about that. I just cannot concentrate to the degree that I need to. So that's one of the big pieces. If the feds were to give us more flexibility on that 1.7 billion, we would have more room to make up some of these cuts and not have the cuts be as drastic next year. But I will tell you that, not to make things worse, but it will, the cuts that you will see this year will likely be nothing in comparison to the cuts you will see in the 21-22 fiscal year. So school districts are trying to brace for that, think about how they handle this year, and I'm sure want as much as possible from the state so they don't have to dip into their reserves in the way that they're going to have to the next school year. So at this point, if there was a 5% cut, that would mean that the negative factor would double. That's how significant it is. And right now, the negative factor is about 572 billion. And I think that you guys, many of you have been teaching long enough to remember when it was at 1 billion, which was a very high number. And the legislature has, taken great strides to try to reduce that number. And so it's also like a mental barrier, like how do we get above a billion again? And so I just know that based on conversations that we've had, that we're aware of in leadership, that Republicans and Democrats are committed to doing everything they can to try to minimize the cuts to education. So I think across the board, there is a commitment to try to do that. But what you have to think about is the significance of the budget shortfall and where does that money go? And how do you make up that money? And that's one of the more depressing parts for us. Because obviously we've had this little program that we've been trying to get money for. And we were successful this year in getting the Joint Budget Committee to put an additional 1.1 million into the Comprehensive Quality Grant Program, which would have at least allowed us to hopefully double the size of the program. The recommendations that came out on Monday from the Joint Budget Committee staff on education did call for eliminating that 1 million, and along with basically every other grant program out there. So Jamie, is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yeah. Oops, sorry. Let me make you a co-host.
Okay.
There you should. Yeah, I don't allow people to share screen unless they're a co-host, so but you should be good now.
Okay. Let's see. Share. All right. All right. What I want to share with you, go here. Okay. Can you guys see this? All I see is Jamie. Can you see this chart that I got put up? Oh, wait.
Yeah, we see the
All right.
chart.
Okay. All right. So you guys can't see my cursor, I'm guessing. You hear me now? Sorry, this is all very interesting.
We can see your cursor. We see everything you're doing.
Yeah,
we do. Okay, great.
Yeah, we see the Department of Education.
So you see the third line, remove continuation of comprehensive quality PE. So they remove it. Now they look, they're removing everything else on this. Okay, so this is just continuation. Now look at all of these grants they're removing. So basically everything that they can, they're trying to make cuts. So here in this line, you see it again where my cursor is. Removing that, right? School improvement funds, which is $1 million to try to get more money to turn around schools. I mean, there's really nothing that is totally saved at this point, except for like READ Act dollars and English language learner dollars that are seen as, being targeted towards specific populations. So I'm going to go down a little bit and show you some of the other big items. They are recommending that we remove 25 million from the BEST program, which I think will likely be much higher because the BEST program has $160 million of cash grants that they could take right now to try to fill this gap. And we'll see that they'll see changes to charter school facilities funding. They're removing money for concurrent enrollment programs. I mean, they're trying to find every place that there are dollars and sweep them to try to get them towards the negative factor. So all you see here that I wanted you to look at is like remove, right? Remove everything that they need to do. They're trying to do. Now, like I said, these are just recommendations. And I'll just stop sharing now. The Joint Budget Committee doesn't have to take these recommendations, but what are they going to do and where do they make up the money? So they know how important this program is to us, but $1 million, and we look at $1 million, right? 1.1, and we say, what does that do across the board? But when you add up grant program after grant program after grant program, that gets them over $200 million. And so that's what they're struggling with and what they're looking at. And, one of the things that we just have to continue to think about is that, like, we have this program on the books. There's no reason that we can't go back and fund it later. And when the state has some sort of recovery, go back and do this again. We know there's support for it. But I just think it's highly likely that the state will cut as many grant programs as possible. What we don't want is those grant programs repealed. And that is my big thing at this point. And I think everybody else who's worked to get grant programs in, we don't want to see the programs repealed. If they don't want to fund them, fine. But we don't want them repealed because it is so incredibly difficult, as you know, to get things on statute. All right, I wanted to take a second. Let's take some questions.
The one question I had, Kayla, and I think you kind of you answered Dave's question around the additional funding. So in the interview that the governor did this week with NPR, he was asked about all-day K funding, and he then went on to talk about how he's going to do everything he can to try to protect funding for K through 12, but he did not mention higher education at all in there. And my higher education colleagues that are on the call might also be wondering, because we just got in our faculty meeting yesterday that UNC is potentially, this because you're, lobbyists, potentially looking at an $18 million deficit next year. And so with the impacts of this, so has there been any conversation around trying to protect higher education during this time as well as K through 12?
Yeah, it's a great question. So higher education, I think, is right there with K-12 in the eyes of the JBC. Higher education, I think, as everybody knows who works in higher ed specifically, is usually the place that they just absolutely gut, because they don't have constitutional requirements like we do around K-12. The good news is that the higher education lobby and the presidents have done such a good job this year of showing where Colorado was in comparison to other states, right? For those of you, who've been doing this for a long time, we always talked about how Colorado, when I was growing up, was 49th in funding, right next to Mississippi, right? And we've made some progress over the last 20 years. Higher education, Colorado is consistently at the bottom. Way below average in state support for higher ed. And there was a lot of progress made this year. The president worked CFOs on a new funding formula that they were going to pass. And so I think the legislature is acutely aware of the problems in higher ed. They're also they're very nervous and concerned about the lack of enrollment. So higher ed was already anticipating lower enrollment next year across the board, except for CU Boulder. Every single school was anticipating that. Now CU is concerned because things that have happened at the federal level now will prohibit international students from coming. And so it is a really dire situation. And at the higher ed level, they're really focused on stimulus 4, the potential for more money from the feds, and working to try to secure more for higher ed than they got last time. It should not be surprising that the governor talked about K-12 and not higher ed. He's not historically been a big higher ed fan. I think, though, that the legislature is in charge of the budget, and the legislature will do what they can. And higher ed has done a very good job to show how they are critical to being an economic driver for the state. I mean, I know that one thing that UNC sent yesterday in a letter was a description of what would happen for their teaching and nursing programs. And those are obviously critical to filling gaps right now in healthcare and also in education. So I think the legislature has a commitment. I'm not saying that the governor does not support higher ed. Of course he does. But, his priorities last year were full day K. This year were around preschool. Some districts have put full day K, and it was in the recommendations from the Joint Budget Committee staff, and said, is this something we can start charging for again if we had to? And I think that the governor will do everything within his power to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Kayla? People
This
can
is This is Jamie. I think it's also important to realize in looking, and I'll share the link to this, is the document that was shared. Every state agency has had to do that. You know, local health agencies, transportation, and that's been so. Like for local health, for CDPHE, I know that they're making major cuts also in their work. So it's not just like what you're just seeing is just one little piece of this bigger budget puzzle. And so if you want to look at the other documents that are available, they're all public, and I can share that link with you. But I just think it's important to realize that this is broad cutting across every program in every um, agency.
I think that's absolutely right, Jamie. Like, there's no way that they're going to make up everything through K-12, nor would they want to. I did send Jamie the links last night to Terry and Jamie and Pam. So feel free to just forward my whole report because it has the links to the other big departments. So yeah, I mean, DHS, for example, I think was asked to cut like $80 million, Department of Human Services, in this current fiscal year. So they're trying to do everything they can right now in every department. And so I think he's absolutely right. And like I said, these are just recommendations. I mean, they could say we want to make major cuts over here and protect K-12. Initially when all of this started, the word was, okay, well, we're going to get a flat budget, which does represent a cut because you're not getting your enrollment and your, inflation increase for next year. And then, that narrative has changed. And I think it's just trying to be realistic. I mean, when you're in a situation like this, we need people to understand that the state has to make some changes.
There's a couple more questions that came into the chat there, Kayla. Brian Wickern asked if Medicaid funds can be used.
No, Medicaid funds, I don't believe can be used for non-Medicaid expenses. I can look into that yet, but my gut says no. Yeah, totally right. What's hard about Tabor is the pain is fast and deep, but the recovery is long as well. I mean, if anything, this is going to just embolden Tabor opponents, which I think is a good thing. We can't recover fast enough because of Tabor, right? And the other issue is that the Gallagher Amendment, and I know I've talked about this in the past, the Gallagher Amendment in our Constitution and Tabor work hand in hand. The Gallagher Amendment has to do with property tax and the assessment rate. So one of the big fears right now for education is that they will need to do a new assessment rate of property tax values next year. And we anticipate that property tax values are going to be way lower. So if the Gallagher Amendment then takes those and ratchets them down to that level, that means that they can never go higher than that level, which will have a big impact on school funding. So there is talk about something being done at Gallagher in the special 2 to maybe 4 week session. And that is something that I think K-12 will want to pay a lot of attention to. So obviously I won't be there because I'll be having a baby, but Patrick will be there and lobbying for us and making sure that you guys have what you need. And so Jamie and Pam and Terry, we can set up a call with Patrick and make sure that he's up to speed, but I already prepared a memo for him. But there are things that the SHAPE, advocates, this board, the teachers may want to engage on when time comes. We just have to figure out how we want to do that and on what issue.
And I think one thing, Kayla, when Terry and Pam and I met with you a couple weeks ago now, I guess, this idea of we've been really focusing so much of our advocacy efforts as an organization on the PE pilot. And that we need to shift our focus a little bit right now to advocating in general, more generally, just so that physical education teachers will keep their jobs, kind of thing. And so do you want to talk a little bit maybe about what that looks like for us as an organization?
Yeah, I think what that looks like is just that we're going to have to really join the collective groups and talk about minimizing cuts to education and why, we fear that, like in recessions in the past, school districts have made choices to eliminate physical education. And we don't want that to happen. So we want as many resources as possible to keep our teachers where they need to be. And I think it just shifts a little bit in terms of what, our focus is. But I don't think it's a big shift. We've always supported changes to the school funding formula. We've supported new innovative approaches. And now I think we just change our focus a little bit. What it could look like is, and we can get on the phone and talk about this next week, it could look about like a letter sent from SHAPE to the Joint Budget Committee, asking them, to do everything they can to prioritize education so that, our priorities as an organization are met, and then talking about what we know about physical education and how it's so important. Right, everybody is so concerned about what is being called the COVID slide. Right, did students get what they needed in the last 2 months of the school year? And we always worry about the summer slide, right? But where was there a disproportionate impact for students? And I think we talk about the impact that we make, and we've done this in so many ways, and certainly around our pilot. But I think we could put together a pretty nice letter on that front.
Great. Thanks, Kayla. Anything else for Kayla before we let her go have a baby? Thank you, Kayla, so much for all the work that you do for us, and we'll all be thinking about you. And
I'm sorry, I feel like the Grim Reaper in every call that I do.
We love you, Kayla. We love you.
Oh my gosh.
We love you so much, and you'll keep us posted on when baby comes and everything, so we can share with everybody.
Yeah. And let's make sure that we do a call. Jamie, let's put this on like the Pam, however you want to reach out. Let's get together, because I do think a letter would be good.
Okay.
And maybe we have the whole board sign it.
Sure.
And then we could share it out with all of our teachers so that they know all of our members, and then ask for them to engage a little bit.
Okay. That's a great idea. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye, Kayla.
Good luck, you guys. Bye.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so why don't we have 2 minutes. We're 2 minutes ahead of schedule. So why don't you everybody get up and take a stretch, go to the bathroom if you need to, get a new cup of coffee and whatnot, and then in a couple of minutes we'll jump back into where we were at, just so that we don't just sit for 2 hours straight. So go ahead and stand up, move around a little bit, stretch, and we'll join back in a couple of minutes.
Isn't it beautiful, Terry?
Did I miss something? Was my name? Oh, that's Salt Lake City.
Oh, I don't know how to do that yet.
Down at the bottom on your where it says stop video, hit your caret there.
Oh, that's
and then you can do a virtual background. Yeah, that was for the Teachers of the Year. We had a conference with them last week and wanted to put them in a good place, or celebrate them a little bit there.
cool.
Hey. Oh, I wish we could have all gone to Salt Lake City and actually seen that background. So, all right, we are going to continue on as people make their way back, and I'm going to have Lauren. 1 second, he said, I think. So I'm going to have Lauren jump in. When the Membership and Health Moves Minds Committee met last weekend, they were talking about ways to keep engaging in some of the initiatives that we had kind of going before all of this happened. And so the idea of a Health Moves Minds fundraiser was born in that meeting. Are you back? Okay.
I'm back.
You want?
So, like Jamie said, we came up with the idea of doing a Health Moves Minds fundraiser through the board, where we are going to do a 24-hour exercise relay from on Friday, May 15th to Saturday, May 16th, and going noon to noon. So we created okay, so I'm able to share it, right, Jamie? Okay, hold on. Is it doing it? Can you see the Health Moves Minds page?
No, we can't.
You cannot. Okay. So
The right screen. Do you want me to pull it up on mine?
you can do that.
Are you wanting to see the fundraiser page?
Yeah, you can just go straight to the fundraiser page. Yeah, it's not letting me do it. So just go to the fundraiser page. Yeah. So we created the fundraiser page for this, which can be located if you guys just go into Health Moves Minds, and then you'll register and then join the team. And by joining the team, you will type in Shape Colorado Rockstars, and then this page will come up right here. And then this is where you guys can share it on your social media pages, friends and family, to get them to donate. We decided to do a 25% kickback to the Food Bank of the Rockies. So 25% will go to them, and then the 25% Gopher gift card that will be kicked back to us, we are going to donate to a low-funded PE program in the state. So click register right there, Jamie. And then keep going down. Yeah, there you go. Join a team. And then up top right there, Shape Colorado. There it is. Super easy to find. And the format for donating is super simple, with being able to plug in your credit card and everything like that. So I am now going to switch to Lori, which Lori is going to talk about how we are going to be doing our exercise event.
And before she does that, I just want to jump in because the intention isn't that like that all of you have to donate and things. Like we really do want to see if we can get folks from outside of the board. We don't want people on the board to feel obligated to donate because you guys already donate your time and do so many things. And right now, obviously, is a challenging time for a lot of people financially. And so we like whatever money we make is fine. So I think Lauren set the goal of $500, but like if we make 20, that's fine. This is more about the actual process than making a whole bunch of money right now when times are uncertain for people and stuff like that. So I just wanted to say that in there.
Absolutely. $500 is a little high. I didn't know what to put in there, so I just threw in a number. But like Jamie said, anything is great, and it's more of just coming together and kind of showing off as a board that we can still do things. So if you want,
Lori, I've already unmuted you, so you should be good.
Awesome. Okay, so this is going to be super fun. I know Kayla didn't have, Kayla had some kind of negative, things seemed bad, but we're going to make this fun, and we're going to have this relay. And the idea behind it, is to just advocate for what we do every day, advocate for exercise, and really show that, hey, Shape Colorado is really vested in Health Moves Minds, even though this is going to look a little bit different. And so the idea behind this virtual 24-hour relay is to do an hour of exercise sometime in that 24-hour period. We'll have a sign-up sheet so you can sign up. And the idea is to choose an exercise of your choice. It could be running, cycling, it could whatever you want to do, swimming. And we want you to go out, play basketball, whatever. And we want you to exercise for 1 hour. We want you to have two things that are really important. And one is that you have some kind of an item with you that you can hand off to the next person. So we'll be doing this live on Google Meets. And or you can also send a short video clip of you exercising or a photo. I think we talked about just trying to encourage a video. So for those of you that have maybe a GoPro, or you can have somebody videotape a short little 10-second clip of you doing your exercise so that we can really make sure that the exercise is valid and it's authentic. Obviously, we want to make sure that we're walking our talk. So the other thing that we thought that might need to be included would be, I don't know if you can see this, but I have a little stuffed animal as my handoff, and something that you might have that has Health Moves Minds with the logo, 2020, and also we can tweet out to SHAPECO rock stars, and we can tweet out our videos and our how much fun we're having. So it could be anything, be creative on what you want to hand off to the next person. It could be just as simple as a baton. So make it fun. It could be a sporting equipment. I had a tennis racket, hand off a tennis racket. And then the other thing is, I know I've been down. I've found myself just, a couple months ago when this all started, I was just out for a run, because I know exercise is good for my brain, right? And that's what we reinforce and we tell kids. And I just was so overwhelmed because while I was running, I just started thinking of everything. And I happened to see a friend on the trail, and she said, "Hey, Lori, how are you doing?" And I just broke down crying. And so I think we all handle things in different way. And I just feel like this is going to be a really positive thing to do, to have fun. And we hope you all sign up. And depending on the numbers, we may have teams of 4. So we hope that everybody signs up. And I'm just going to pass it off back to Lauren, and he'll talk to you about the Google form.
So you'll see in the agenda, we set up a Google form for this where if you are wanting to do this event with us, you'll fill out the Google form, and on the Google form, email your name, and then for, like Lori talked about, us having that piece where people are knowing that we're competing and doing this. We're going to do a live stream with Google Meet, which I'll have Ben talk more about here in a minute. And if you can't get on the live stream, then you'll just take a video or a picture and use the hashtag SHAPECO Rockstar and put it on a social media where Ben will also have that streaming the entire 24 hours as well. We want to put out these links for, people to come on and jump on and see if we can get this to go viral a little bit. So Ben, if you want to talk about the logistics of the Google Meet and how that's going to look.
Great. That's awesome. And yeah, I think, and Lauren and Lori and the membership will work on the logistics. Once we figure out how many people are actually signed up and interested, they'll work on how long the slots are and how many people are on each team and whatnot. And I think the big thing here is like as a give back. And so as Lauren mentioned, that 25% of what we raise will be going to the Food Bank of the Rockies, and then we'll be using the gift cards, the Gopher gift cards that we get with the other 25% to donate those to schools in Colorado who are underfunded for physical education. So I think this is a great thing for us to do as a board, not only to show our commitment to Shape America's initiative of Health Moves Minds, but also just as a way for us to kind of come together. And I put in the chat, if any of you have ever done like a relay for life or like a 24-hour relay, this is that same concept, except you can do whatever exercise you want. And lifting, or Donna can dance, as Elizabeth said. And so I think it can be a really fun thing for us to kind of come together and do. Do you want to talk? There she is, right there, dancing. And so, Lauren, do you want to talk a little bit about because you guys have set the dates and what's going to come next after people, sign up?
Yeah, so the date, like I said, so we got 2 weeks from now. It'll be Friday and Saturday, the 15th and the 16th of May. So noon to noon. So once you guys fill out that form, if you guys could fill out that form before the end of the weekend, I think we could probably fill it out by the end of today. But I'll extend it to the end of the weekend. If you could fill that form out if you are wanting to participate in this. And then once we get going from there, I set up the window to start on this Monday. So the 5th, is that? The 4th. So the 4th for our fundraiser to be active. So you guys can start sharing out that, the link for that. And again, you don't have to send out the link to anybody. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's not the point of this, but it's just something to keep us in touch with our Health Moves Minds initiative as well. So if anybody has any questions.
And can I just add something?
Yeah.
So we just want to keep it really positive, and we want to make sure too that, well, after we get the sign up, you'll know who's handing off to you. And so when you get done exercising, you'll want to pass the baton or whatever kind of into the camera, like you're handing off, and say, okay. And for example, if I was handing off to Lauren, then I would say, okay, and I'm now handing off to Lauren, go. And then, and Lauren can then take the baton. There he goes. Is that an empty can?
No, it's actually a speed stacks cup.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Well, no.
And then and then hand off. And I've seen some questions. It depends how many people are going to sign up. We may have to have teams if we have a whole lot of people, which we hope we do. And then if you're interested in taking the graveyard shift anytime, you can sign up early for those. Those are always up for grabs.
Yeah, and so the idea is that one person from the team will be active at a time. So not everybody will be exercising at the same time. And so once Lori and Lauren get the information of who wants to do it, then they'll set up the time slots for people to sign up for throughout that time. So we will probably then move on because you guys can send out more information as people sign up. This is not a required thing. It's not going to be looked bad upon if you do not sign up. So don't feel pressured to do that. If you don't sign up, you can just cheer the teams along, for Jamie, yes, you can be your own team and run for 24 hours straight if you want to. So yeah, I mean, it will go towards, it will go towards your member in good standing according to D. And, but it doesn't have to, you don't have to feel pressured to do this. So just a kind of a fun, positive thing, as Lori mentioned, for us to come together as a board. So Lauren, anything else before we move on?
Nope. I think we're
okay. Cool. All right. Thank you, Membership Committee and Health Moves Minds, for that. So we get to move on to the most exciting part of the meeting now and talk about the budget. I know Elizabeth is so excited. Can you all see my screen again with the agenda? Okay, perfect. So there is a link in here to the financials folder. And once you're in the financials folder, sorry, my internet connection is very slow right now. Once you are in the financials folder, there is the proposed budget 2021, correct, Terry? Is that the one?
Yeah, don't click on the Word version, click on the PDF version.
Okay.
Word version got reformatted.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to tell if you're looking at it because your head will be kind of tilted sideways because Pam's scanner looks like it's a little bit off.
So your task was to review the budget between the last meeting and this meeting. which I know you all spent so much time going line by line through. We do need to vote to approve or not the budget in our business meeting. And so we wanted to just have some time here before the business meeting to bring up any questions of discussion that people had. I know Elizabeth had a couple of questions. And Terry, I don't know if you want to jump in and take over here.
Sure. Yep. So like Jamie said, last meeting, we had an opportunity to send you a proposed budget. We appreciate you looking at it and taking look. I just want to remind you that this budget was developed before anything went south. So it was really built on what we knew at that time. And even today, we still don't know a lot much more, but but just to give reference to where, just to give reference back to where we developed this budget for you guys. From there, does anybody have any questions, any concerns, any adjustments, anything that you'd like for us to consider, so we can kind of get those decisions made, talked about before we put this to the vote during the board meeting this afternoon. Elizabeth, would you like to present? Thank you so much for sending those to us and having that conversation with me yesterday, through text messages of taking. Would you like to present it, or would you like me to read your suggestions?
I mean, I can ask them and it's more of a kind of philosophy question. I know this budget was originally when we thought everything was going normal. I have a few concerns. I'm not as concerned about convention when thinking about it, because what we spend will be proportional to what we make. And so if we go online, we're going to spend a whole lot less. We're obviously going to make a whole lot less as well. And so I'm not as concerned about those line items. The line item that makes me concerned with how everything is going is the membership item, of which we have gotten quite a bit more income from, 500.1. A lot of that has come from the workshops that we've done around the state. And those have, I mean, again, who knows what's going to happen next year, but the likelihood of a lot of those happening is quite a bit slimmer. As well as if we had an online convention, we'd probably get less memberships from that, because most people just join when they come to convention. So part of me goes, should we be, and again, this is more of a philosophy question, should we be more conservative in lowering that number? Because we upped it quite a bit in looking at that. Last year we were only budgeting 7,500, and this year we're budgeting quite a bit more. But the likelihood of us getting that more, I think, is not going to happen.
Right. Is there a suggestion that you'd like? So this last year we made $13,677 on professional membership income. That's the line you're talking about?
Right. Yes.
And so that's why we put it at 13,000. We can lower it back down to the 7,500 that we had the year before, prior to doing charging for those regional trainings.
I mean, with everything, I know these are always estimates that guide us in our spending. So we're not necessarily locked into anything. But obviously, if we lower that, we would need to lower some expenditures to try to get a little bit closer to a balanced budget if possible. And it's more of a philosophy question. I mean, just like Kayla's talk with, the financial output and stuff, I look at some of the expenditures, and I looked at the last financials that Pam posted, and some committees have not spent any or very much of their line item. And should this be a year that we zero out some of those funds or have quite a bit less, just to try to get a little bit more balanced? I don't know. We're already not bringing in enough at this time, because we still haven't come back from the American Heart divorce. And being conservative is what's going to keep us going for a long time. So I'm good either way. I just wanted to voice that it concerns me a little. So I don't know if other people have feedback.
Yeah.
I think it's so challenging right now because there's so much unknown. And I actually agree with Elizabeth a lot around this idea of, do we just proceed and keep our fingers crossed, or do we make adjustments now to be a little bit more conservative? And part of me wonders if like we just, proceed as is, but then try to be conservative in our spending, knowing that we might not be making as much, and then it'll balance itself out versus us removing line items and things like that. But I think that that's a discussion that we need to think about, as a board. And I don't know if Terry and Pam have suggestions about what that might look like, or if people were, I don't know if anyone has any suggestions. That would be good.
So this is Jamie. So the big spending item is really, and income is really around convention. So would it make sense to, well, you could either adjust it now, but would it also make sense that once we know whether convention goes virtual or not, that the budget then gets redone to address that? Because that's going to change a lot in terms of costs. And then we would obviously have to revote on that if there's a major change, because I know there's bylaws that have to be addressed also.
Right. Yeah. So what Jamie's suggesting is that we could propose an amended budget later, after more decisions have been made nationally and statewide, to the board to amend the budget. And we can pass this current budget as is, so that we have a budget in place and a starter.
I like that idea. I mean, could we make it that it is something that the financial group looks at before every board meeting? And so, usually we just look at the finances and we give a report, kind of here we are. But could we bring the budget back up and say, okay, the way things are going, like at the September meeting, by then we'll know what's happening with convention and stuff like that. So we've got to make drastic budget changes, or
Right.
as of right now, everything's still looking good with what we propose. So we don't need to look at it. Like if we can make that an official part of every board meeting, I think I would be more comfortable with that, knowing it's going to be addressed probably over the next couple of years. Because again, month to month, something drastic could change. And all of a sudden we do need to propose a new budget.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, that's where I would be more comfortable, just because there's so much unknown. We wouldn't want to like slash a bunch of things and then like, something happens and everything goes forward. And then, we're trying to have to pull money from different places. And so, I think the challenge, right, with a virtual convention is that typically most virtual conventions like have little to no registration fee and things like that too. So we'd even like probably need to assess, if we did go virtually, like, would we just require people to be members but then not have a fee or something, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of a wash though, because if we don't have convention and we don't get a bunch of new members or whatever, but our convention's not going to cost as much. The budget's just kind of a guideline. It's, anything can happen.
Yeah, and to address Dave's question in the chat, I don't believe, and Lauren can correct me, but I don't believe that any schools were actually able to hold their Health Moves Minds events because most of them were towards the end of the year. 2 did?
We got 2 done.
Okay, but the revenue for those will be very minimal, I would say, like.
One was 0 and one was
500 and then 100.
Oh.
Was it? I thought it was a 0. Okay.
It wasn't much, but that's kind of like what we expected when everything was to the end.
Yeah, and so we can't like sort of rely on that. I mean, the other thing too that we need to we'll think about, right? Like, is that a lot of our expenses, even thinking about travel. So none of the executive did any travel really this year. And so, other than me going to Speak Out Day, like that's none of the other travel funds were used. And so there's actually a lot from this year that didn't get spent out that puts us in a little bit healthier financial position for next year anyway. And so I think in some ways, if things do impact long term, like those travel funds, for example, won't get used again next year. And, so I think, if it seems okay with everybody to, proceed with voting on the proposed budget as is, but with and I don't know how we do this. I'm looking to my parliamentarian here.
Not till the business meeting.
Yeah, with the caveat, we'll do it in the business meeting, but I wonder if we add in the caveat that we'll revisit the budget, at each meeting as this situation unfolds, or if we need to even have that in there somehow.
I mean, if we didn't trust our leaders, then I think we should have an official motion to put that in there. But part of me also trusts
So
that.
That would be a separate motion, though. So
Yeah.
that would be a separate motion. There would be a motion around passing the budget, and there would be a motion around from here for the next 2 years. We would have more in-depth financial update from the chip.
Revisit the budget every board meeting or something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
So Dave asked about the $22,000 shortfall, and I know we talked last year like that we are going to see shortfalls like until we figure out another income stream after losing our Jump Rope for Heart dollars. And so this was something that we anticipated, and actually 22,000 was less than we anticipated. I think that we had initially a couple of years ago talked about that it might be more 40 to 50,000 shortfalls. So we did make cuts last year that carried over, so that we would only be at a $22,000 shortfall, and we do have some surplus that will cover that for now. But that's where we need to start really thinking creatively around other ways to raise funds. And the membership committee had started looking into, like a golf tournament fundraiser in the summer and things, which obviously those things aren't going to happen this summer. So some of the things that we had started to look into as other ways to generate income have not been able to go through. So yeah, I don't think there's anything in the bylaws that requires a balanced budget. Elizabeth is saying no. And of course, Dave, will have you do awards again because you're the best at that. So, okay.
Can I ask one other question? Sorry.
Yeah,
Do
go
we
ahead.
have any idea of what, based on this year's budget and current spending, what that looks like in terms of any additional funds that might carry over into next year's budget?
We don't do carryover. Besides,
or should I say budget savings from this year? Savings from this year. Do you have any sense of what that will be?
Well, if you look at the April financials that are posted in the folder, you can see where we are with our spending versus what was budgeted.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Sorry, I'll take a look at those.
So just like they were saying, like we're way under budget with travel, and some of the committees like professional development has spent 0 of their $1,000. So we are definitely well under budget for this year, which is good.
Okay. We good, do you think, Terry?
I think so. I just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to have input and any questions answered before we move to vote this afternoon or later.
No, stop saying this afternoon. We are not keeping you all until the afternoon. It's going to happen in like 20 minutes. So
it's 19 years of habit. Sorry.
Cool. Thank you, Elizabeth, for your questions, and for all the Dave and Jamie and Ben for your input, and Donna and everyone who provided some input. You know, I think I keep using these words, unprecedented, you know, but we're in unprecedented times, and we'll adjust. We can have a 24-hour board meeting if Murray wants to lead it, but that's, you know, not going to happen for me. So, okay, yeah, and just like keep having me say unprecedented. All right, so let's move on to committee shareouts and updates. And just to be conscious of time, I know that all committees, I think, other than professional development, just because they don't have a whole lot of new business right now, given what's happening, we're able to meet. And so if each of the committee chairs wants to just share out, you know, 2 minutes max of what you're working on, and then we can continue to move forward. So, Brian, do you want to give us an update? One thing too I was going to mention is that in the membership survey, and remember they've asked about like virtual workshops and stuff throughout the summer, and they kind of brought that up. And so you guys might be able to work with the membership committee once they get those results.
Sounds good. I don't really have anything to add other than maybe Terry can chime in, but the Western Slope. So our April 4th, you know, of course, was canceled, but the Western Slope is going to be a half-day virtual, and I'll let Terry kind of lead that. And that's about all I have.
So yeah, it looks like we're going to go forward with the Western Slope Summer Institute. It's going to be actually 2 half-day sessions. We're going to be doing breakout sessions on the first day, and then on the second day, we're going to be doing a standards, implementing standards workshop with Shannon Milliken and Sue Brittenham, and so they'll be leading that. And yeah, we're just excited to be able to offer this for everyone in Colorado and keep it going. So yeah, that's about all I have. Registration should be coming out next week. We're still putting that together.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Brian, for that. Advocacy committee, does anyone want to jump in?
Sure, I'll jump in. We have 2 things. One is there's a film that's being released. It was supposed to be released in April, called Let Them Play. And one of our physical educators from Pagosa Springs, who joined us last year at Lobby Day, he was highlighted, his program was highlighted in that film. It's a documentary about physical education, physical activity, and health in schools. And so as a team, we've received the trailers from that movie, from that film, and we've reviewed. They've asked us to kind of help come alongside them to promote this film. We are all waiting to kind of see the film itself to see how we can message that. So when that information comes about, we'll let you know. But it should be very interesting, and we just need to make sure as an organization that if we do promote anything, that we are using the correct messaging. So we don't want to say it's about physical education if it's actually about physical activity. So we just need to be conscious about that. The second thing is, as you all remember, we have a video contest that we started, I don't know when, maybe January, February. I think it was February. And we had one person submit, and then the COVID came about. And so the submission date had been April 12th. But because most people weren't in school then for that whole month before, we've gotten just one application or one submission. So as an advocacy committee, you know, we were going to have people vote and do all that. Obviously, we don't need to do that. Do we want to move forward? I just need to know, as an organization, do we want to move forward and say that? So is Brian Hull? Brian, are you on this call? Is Brian on? No. Okay. So Brian Hull's a video from Bruce Randolph was submitted, and so just wanted to know, like, what should our next steps be? Do we say yes to Brian, or do we just say no contest this year due to the COVID? It would be kind of nice to, if we do have that ability to give $1,000 worth of gopher equipment, it would be nice to do that. So
Was it a good video?
yeah, he submitted last year. Yeah. Yep. It's the same video he submitted last year.
He followed the contest rules. I say give it to him.
Yeah. What? Who else?
I mean, I think that it would be, I don't know, so many things got canceled due to COVID. And I just feel like if he got it in on time, given the guidelines that were initially out, folks had a long time to submit those videos. You guys put it out ahead of time this year. And so, yes, COVID ended up.
Yeah.
The committee decided that they were going to allow people who did not win to resubmit their same videos. So he was within the guidelines. I mean, I think it's up to you guys as a committee, but I would say that it'd be not like super great for us to just cancel if there was somebody who submitted. But
Well, is Gopher on board still?
that would be a Terry question, I guess.
Yeah.
I haven't had conversation with them if they are still on board, but they haven't sent me anything saying that they're not. And they're really good about not backing out of agreements. So I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah.
And the other part of me goes, it's not our money. Gopher's doing this, and what a great opportunity for them to get the equipment. It's you know, it's not like, oh, we're trying to be conservative with our budget, so let's just cancel the contest. This is
Right.
outside of our organization. So
Exactly. That's what the committee felt too.
Great.
So we're good. Terry, can you check with Gopher? Just double check with that, and then let me know, and then I'll communicate with Brian and whatever we need to do on our side to acknowledge that. Okay.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks to the advocacy committee, and we'll maybe connect Pam, and we can get together with the advocacy committee to draft some type of letter, as Kayla mentioned, and find a way to circulate that for everybody to sign here pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that as it's coming. All right, developing leaders. Jennifer K or Dave want to jump in?
So the Developing Leaders Committee met on Thursday of this past week, and we continue to really focus our work around planning for the pre-con sessions. Our fingers are crossed that we're going to be able to have face-to-face convention. We don't have a B plan at this point. Doesn't mean that we can't envision what a B plan might look like or contingency, but at this time, we're just really looking at what those pre-con sessions are going to look like. We're thinking about changing the format up a little bit in response to what our students are telling us that they're interested in. We're looking at possibly using one of those two larger time blocks to host something of a panelist discussion, where we would invite experts, it could even be some members of the board, to come in and just talk a little bit about their work, and then offer some time for our students to ask some questions about whatever might be of interest to them. and then using the second time block to break out into smaller groups and use a similar format to what we had done in the past with roundtable discussions and a facilitator available to have conversations with students in a small group setting around a particular topic. At this point, we're still planning on doing the SHAPECO challenge, and our two student representatives, Joe and Luis, are busy working on planning that. And we are looking at changing up a little bit the way that students can earn their convention fee reimbursements. And we're going to be looking for some input from committee members and presenters about where they might need some help. So it's going to be more connected to like a service arrangement where they have to contribute a minimum of 2 hours in order to get reimbursement. And Jen, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit more detail about what that might look like, because I know you've done some work on the messaging for that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's pretty straightforward right now. Anyone can sign up for hours, and they can indicate on the Google form whether or not they want to have those hours count towards reimbursement, because we know some students from different programs use PE club funds to go to convention, and so we wouldn't necessarily reimburse those. It would be students who are paying out of pocket. I think that was the message we received from some other people on the board. If anyone has an objection to that and you want money to go back into the PE club, that's something that we can entertain. But yeah, so they would sign up, and we need to figure out a way of documenting what they're doing and assigning them jobs and kind of getting them where they need to go. But generally speaking, that's the basic information on that.
Great. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for your work as well on that, and lots of things that you guys have going on there. So that's great. Yeah, and the idea too was that folks would get, I think, a certificate or something showing their service learning hours for volunteering at convention as well, so that students could use that towards assignments that they might have at the university or portfolios or things like that. So nicely done. Okay, convention and awards, Donna and Mel.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback on developing leaders, as we discussed some thoughts of what jobs they could do to earn those hours. And so we came up with 8. And if anybody can think of anything else, please let Dave and Jen know that. Because we came up with being like a greeter, just being at the front door and come this way, registration's over there, kind of thing. Escorts at the awards banquet, silent auction setup and takedown. Presiders again, if we want, or just help setting up and taking down sessions. That seems to be an issue. If you go in and you're to present and the guy hasn't even started taking down, then we could put that in. We can ask our presenters if they need somebody to help with that. Convention takedown and loading into cars and trucks. That's always a nightmare at the end of convention. So if we could get anybody to help do that, that would be awesome. Of course, raffle tickets, handing them out, assisting Ben with AV, setting up in the morning and just making sure everything's going well. And having somebody that's just standing at registration that we can say, hey, would you mind getting this for me? Just a go for kind of job. And so that's what we've come up with so far. So if anybody has any other thoughts, please let them know. We met on April 18th and had a really good meeting, actually. And I've confirmed a place for us to have our Thursday party. And it's the Eagles, which is a service group, kind of like the Elks Club and stuff like that. And they have a nice big room and a bar, and we could have a really good time there. And we thought we'd do a theme of a decades party. So come dressed as your favorite decade, just to make it a little different. Um, let's see. We also discussed a bit about what's going to happen if we don't have the convention. And Terry was going to check on our insurance to see, if what that would cover if we've already put expenses in. So I don't know if he's done that yet.
When I looked through it, our insurance is just general liability insurance. So if somebody gets hurt, we have kind of lawsuits against us, those kind of things, but it doesn't cover us as far as losses for a convention cancellation. It is built into our convention insurance that we get. Which is a rider that we purchase usually right before convention. But it wouldn't count for this COVID piece. So if it gets canceled because of COVID or something like that, we won't be covered on those expenses.
Okay. And then Emily, do you want to talk about pre-con?
Sure. Can you guys hear me? The microwave's running.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So we've got some people locked down. We've spent most of the budget for presenters already. We're bringing in some people from out of state, and we're looking for someone to do health. So we've got some ideas for that of community people, not just like a single person. We're looking into that. I wrote down the grant writing workshop and the panel and toys. So we're doing pretty well, but we've got a few spaces that we still need to fill. So health, and if you guys know anyone, I like this grant writing idea, but I'd like someone who knows how to like write a grant or like has experience with it. So if you know anyone for those, that would be great. Did you want more than that, Donna?
No, unless you want to tell us who we've booked.
We have Chris Walker. He's from North Carolina. He teaches elementary. I have their names written down.
I have Charlotte Cronky.
Yeah, I've talked to Charlotte. She's going to come in and do equitable teaching. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Terry. And Ben Wells has agreed to do a technology session or two.
We've got him for an elementary pre-con and a secondary pre-con.
Would you guys be interested in having Jane Greenberg? She's the #1 grant writer in the country at $36 million.
Can you send me her contact information and then I can email her and see what she would be willing to do? That'd be great. Thanks, Karen.
The only thing that she would require probably is her airfare. To get her here, she can stay with me. But if you want to take that into account or not.
Yeah, if you'll just send me her contact information, I can get in contact with her and talk to the convention committee and the board of directors and see what we can do.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
There's
then
one more.
Marty James Hassan.
Yep.
There you go.
Whatever.
So Marty's agreed. We need to talk. Jamie, I need to talk with you about this, about what specifically we want her to present on. She has been kind of vague.
Well, I thought we wanted her to do equity and culturally responsive teaching, and
Correct.
She will relate it to health.
Yeah. So
Maybe get money from the Colorado Health Foundation. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
She'll be she's an expert, national expert in culturally diverse teaching methods and equity and things, and so that social justice is her research area, and she actually goes all over the country doing sessions for organizations and usually charges $1,000 an hour. So we are really lucky to get her, so yeah, so she is a friend and is always willing to give discounts. In this case, it's a significant discount
Yeah.
to organizations like SHAPE. So,
Well, then, if that's Marty, then Charla is not that, right, Terry? Then Charla's the
She's
secondary? That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. She's going to be doing secondary.
Okay. Earlier I said she was doing social justice and I got them mixed up, but I got it straight now. Thank you.
Okay. I wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
so
Conversation about her integrating that into her secondary or
I
not.
mean, I can if you want me to.
and Dee had sent a person for health session via email. And so I think Terry's looking at where we might be able to find something to cover that because it was a really great session idea, I think, around gender identity and things. So, which I think is really important from in the health space too. So,
Yeah, so we're looking into funding for that as well. Thanks, Dee.
All right, Donna, do you have anything else?
Is Melissa here?
Mel, are you around?
I'm here.
Okay.
Here I am. Hi.
Hi.
So awards we have over 30 nominations, so that's really exciting. 6 elementary, 4 middle, 3 high school, 3 dance, 5 administrator of the year, 2 adapted, 1 distinguished service, 2 joy of effort, 2 young professionals, 1 future professional, 1 health, 1 graduate student of the year, 1 scholar award, and 1 college professor. So the deadline was, I know, amazing. That's what I was hoping for. The deadline ended yesterday, except for I did have to extend for a few candidates that I missed their nominations and I wasn't getting to them soon enough. So I extended it till May 7th for a few candidates. But then Terry sent out the email for people to help look at those essays, and that'll be happening. We'll know, Terry, by June.
Yeah. So once we have this all put together, the folders put together and everything for the review committee, we'll send it out to them and probably have that back early June. I haven't got a chance to look at it either, but we had amazing response to the review committee as well. I think we have I invited 12 and I think we have 10 people under review. So
great. Thank you, Terry. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mel, for all your work, and Joe Bishop as well on the awards, and Donna and the convention committee. And their meeting was so productive and so positive and stuff. So I'm just really thankful to have you guys all working on that. And I know it can be a weird feeling to be working on something that you don't know if it's going to happen. And so, I think just staying positive and, continuing the course will be great. So we'll move on to D and the membership committee. D, can anyone hear D? I don't know why we can't hear you. You're not muted. D, why don't you call me and I can put you on speakerphone and then they can hear you. And I'll call you right now, actually. Okay, I think everyone can hear you now. Do you want to just mute your computer so that we're not getting the feedback? Maybe.
Jamie, you got to mute your.
I need to mute mine.
You need to mute your speaker. Yep.
Okay, go.
that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So short and sweet because Lauren and Lori already presented for Health Moves Minds. And with that, again, our intent here is just to keep moving Health Moves Minds forward despite the situation that we're in, right? So we want to make sure that as an organization, we're supporting that and we're not just giving up just because we're not in the normal setting. So anyways, with membership, we Lori has sent thank you like personal copies of the journal articles to the members that we spotlighted in the last journal. They're very appreciative of that. Spotlight members for the next journal coming up. We sent an email. I sent an email to higher ed professionals looking for some student members to spotlight. So look for that. Karen, Danny, and Elizabeth. And then in addition, we created that survey for members to complete. We thought it was really important for them to hear us to hear their voice with all this, because that's why we're here, right? So we will be reaching out to Brian with future professional development and Donna convention committee with results.
Okay. So I think that folks had a hard time hearing you. Can you guys all hear me okay? So I'll just summarize a little bit what Dee said. So Lori sent out some, the member spotlights that are going out. Lori was sending out hard copies with a thank you card to those folks so that they would get those. Unfortunately, I think one of them went out to the school, so that person might not get it for a while, but she was getting thank you notes back from the thank you notes. So people are really appreciative of getting those. And if you haven't looked at the member spotlight in the journal, it's like a really nice way for us to spotlight members across the state. And so they're looking for folks, for student members to spotlight as well, so that we get different perspectives of our members. A lot of what she mentioned was around what Lauren and Lori have been doing with Health Moves Minds, and then also the membership survey that went out, so we can really find out ways that we can continue to support our members. And that was a big part of their meeting, was thinking about how membership might be down and how we can find ways as a board to, even if we don't have an in-person convention, to have people to renew their memberships because they see value in what we do as a board and what we do as an organization for them. So, I think even just this advocacy letter that we're going to put together and have everyone sign and things like those are things we need to be promoting as an organization, so people really understand the benefits of their membership. So thank you to the membership committee for thinking about some of those ways to continue to have folks be involved in our organization. I think that's great. So thanks for all their work. And then Lauren and Lori will be in touch with everybody shortly or soon about our registration for our 24-hour exercise relay. So thank you all to all the committees for that. You will see a note at the end of the agenda. Our next meeting is not until August 29th. And so it would be great for committees to meet over the summer virtually to continue to do some of the work that you guys have been doing so that we can maintain our momentum from this year. So with that, I am going to move to call the business meeting to order on May 2nd, 2020 at 11:06 a.m. Can I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I would like to make a motion to approve the meeting notes from March 14th.
I second.
Cam Rogers seconds. Any discussion? All those for state aye, or like raise your hand, or put something up on the screen.
Aye.
There you go. Any against, say no. Any abstentions? Okay, seeing no abstentions. I think there's 35 people in the meeting right now, so all right. Board of Directors and special reports. Treasurer report.
Sorry, never mind.
Oh, did I screw up?
Nope, you're fine. It's new business. Never mind.
Okay. Treasurer accountant report.
As submitted.
Thanks, Pam. Emily Graves, past president.
As submitted.
Mine is as submitted. D, president-elect. As submitted. I saw her mouth it. Yeah, there we go. Terry Jones, executive director.
As submitted.
And convention manager Donna Carey.
As submitted.
Thanks. For everybody's information, you can always click on these, and there is a folder in our bigger folder to see what these positions, what the people have been doing. Pam Rogers was on here, but her position is no longer a paid position for the PE for All coordinator, so she no longer will have to submit her reports for consideration. Okay, we do have some new business, and so we do need a motion to approve the 2020-2021 budget.
I move to approve the 2020 to 21 budget.
Second.
Okay, Karen Marley seconded it. Seconded it. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion. All those for state aye.
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 All those against say no. Any abstentions? Dave, are you abstaining or are you waving at someone?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Dave Yonke would abstain. Okay. So with a vote of 34 for, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the budget for 2020-2021 is approved as moved. Okay. Any other new business? Elizabeth?
I move that we have a budget discussion at every board meeting for the next 2 years.
Second.
I second.
Okay. And that was seconded by, I think,
Karen Marley.
Karen Marley. Any discussion?
This is Terry. I was wondering if we could get just a little bit of clarification of what the budget discussion would be. Would it be just presenting our financial profit loss for the year or the most current month? And also, would that there was discussion about amending the budget? Would it be allowed to amend the budget at every single meeting, or would that be the purpose, I guess, is my question.
My initial thought on this is that you guys as executive board meet before the meetings, and so you talk through the agenda. So you'd bring it up, oh my gosh, we really have to edit the budget. We have to adjust it, or we're good with that. Just that it comes up in conversation. I know the financials are always presented as to how much we have spent as opposed to what the budget is. But just a little deeper discussion that right now it looks like we're good with our current budget. or we need to really discuss this. I only want it as an agenda item. If nothing needs to be changed, then it'll probably take 10 seconds. Just that conversation is coming up as finances and stuff are so uncertain over the next few years.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
Okay. So does that motion still stand as is then with the additions?
Mm-hmm. There's still and if anyone else wants to add what they want, or discussion.
Any more discussion on that? Okay, all those for state aye.
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 Any against? State no. Any abstentions? Okay, seeing no votes, no abstentions, that motion passes. Thank you, Elizabeth. Any other new business? Okay, and we have no old business, so I move to close the business meeting at 11:13 a.m. on May 2nd, 2020.
You want to read Kathy's announcement in the chat?
Yeah, I'll just wait until after we close the business meeting. Who seconds that? Sorry.
I seconded.
I seconded.
A lot of people seconded it, so pick someone, Jesse. Brian Wickren's got his peace sign up, so. Okay, great. So our business meeting is closed. As I mentioned, our next meeting is August 29th, 2020. Originally, this was scheduled at the convention hotel, but we usually do that when we haven't actually been to the space before. And so we will not be holding it there just because it's more expensive for us to hold it there. So I'm going to leave that as TBD just in case we are still needing to meet virtually. But we'll also look at having a location as an option as well. And so just keep that date held for our next business or our next board meeting. And as I mentioned, committees are encouraged to meet virtually. Kathy also put in the chat as a reminder to everybody to still be looking for the silent auction items because we can still do a silent auction virtually if we have to. And so to use your summer as you're out and doing things to work with your contacts and people that you're coming into contact with to get some silent auction items so that we can have a great silent auction this year. So with that, I think that we are good. Oh, and there's a baby on the screen that everybody can see that Renee is showing us. And thank you all so much for your continued work and dedication. And I know the last thing you want to do right now is be on another Zoom meeting. And I wish we could all be going out for, beers or coffee or whatever it is that floats your boat right now and seeing each other, but we can't. So let's just try to stay connected, and I'm looking forward to everybody, joining in if you can on the Health Moves Minds Relay. The link to register is in the meeting notes, so fill out that Google form. And Veronica has put a new email in the chat and things. So do we have a receipt to give to donators? I'm not sure how that works.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Kathy has a receipt with our letterhead that
Great.
we given, and I believe it was in our folder from last year. Kathy might need to put it in there again, but last year we had a receipt on our letterhead in the folder.
Great. Developing Leaders, I know, is continuing. They're going to meet again after this. So Jen is sending you a Zoom link for that. And a reminder too from Elizabeth to review the convention proposals by May 20th. So great work, everybody. Stay in touch, stay safe, stay healthy. And we will connect with you all soon. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Donna, you want to dance us out of here? Oh, she's gone already.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. I guess.
Jamie, can the developing leaders just stay on and use this code, or will it go away after you leave?
Yeah, if I leave, then the meeting will shut down. So I think Jen said she'll email you guys a link right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna send out a new link to the group,
Okay.
and I'll include Donna on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Ben, do you need anything from me? Okay, great. I'm gonna end the meeting. Thanks, everybody.